banking system, taxes on remittances. There's a whole host of things that we can do.
And speaking of cleaning up things, a man who knows how to clean up the mean streets joins us now, ladies and gentlemen. Commander Gregory Bovino joins us now. Commander, how are you?
Jack, I'm doing good. It's good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Well, it's always great to see you, sir. And, so I was reading, as I always do, the New York Times, my favorite newspaper. But there was an interesting piece in the New York Times recently talking about the Executive Office for Immigration Review and saw that, it had been pushed out, but also talked about, and what was really interesting, what they talked about in here was how it is that so many illegal aliens in our country are hiding very well. Actually, it turns out they're hidden very well in the system. They're using these ITINs, they're using SSNs, Social Security numbers, that they are so embedded in there that actually that the court system works once you find them and get them there, but actually the really most effective way to go and roll them up is exactly what you were doing. It talks about city patrol, it talked about area control, it talked about roving patrol. And I said, wait a minute, isn't this exactly what the commander was doing?
Well, Jack, exactly. And that's been something that the Border Patrol's done interior enforcement wise for over 100 years. So if you look back in the 50s at the Eisenhower administration, as well as some of the other administrations that really took that interior operation seriously, the removal of illegal aliens from the interior, that's it, that general immigration enforcement. I call it total spectrum immigration enforcement. And that means everything. Everything's on the table, whether it's rolling up to a Home Depot or targeted enforcement, everything all at the same time. And we need to roll these illegal aliens up so we can, as you say, get them into the system. Get them into the system, we can remove them.
So as they want to go about preaching about that we need immigration reform, it's like, how do you plan on getting these individuals up out of the country, especially when you have places like the Southwest, places like California, who wants to provide sanctuary for these individuals? See, this is the problem that we have, right? We have this system being worked up as sort of like an underground railroad. No designation of black people at the moment, but this is how this is working. To where you have people that is already in this country hiring individuals who look like them as they gain status, taking jobs away from American citizens in these corporations, to where they have some type of hiring ability to hire people that look like them. And these people are able to use these ITINs in order for them to have a safety net in this country, even if they don't use any of the social welfare or the social services, right? So if they don't use the your welfare, food stamps, all this other stuff, they still have the ability and the culpability to take the job away from the United States citizen. And because there is such a heart for them at the moment, particularly with the people that look like them. It doesn't matter who the people are, right? It doesn't matter if they come from Mexico, Venezuela, China, Korea. It doesn't matter, right? These individuals have a pipeline to getting the jobs and taking the jobs away from the United States citizens, while at the same time they have been the people who have already been here, right, have before the Joe Biden administration and before this open border policy had been a violation of the Immigration Act a violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, right? In terms of giving these people work authorizations and stuff like that. You have them getting with the ability to get business loans. So when they get these business loans and they start their business, who you think they're hiring? Right. I'm not saying that for everybody, but times out of 10, when they know that their individuals are coming over here in a plight and that they can get that cheap labor up out of them, give them that work experience in order for them to gain the skills and take care of themselves and their own well-being, even if they don't apply for any social services. That's still taking not only businesses away, making the American compete in terms of business-wise, making it more competitive for business owners, United States citizens. But these individuals not only are hiring their own people, right? These individuals, in the first thought of how they are supposed to be for the benefit of the United States citizen, the United States citizen is supposed to be able to get these loans and be able to hire these individuals. Instead, you don't have that. You have that these individuals are getting business loans and hiring United States citizens. And so instead of them being for the benefit of the United States citizen, we're being a benefit for them. So as we are catering to them, they are less likely to cater to us. And so they are not being for the benefit of the United States citizen. There's a lot of dynamics that this stuff is working into the play of are this country that you would not see in the country that they come from. And the reason why this is skyrocketing and become a problem, I'm trying to open you up into all the aspects of the cost of having immigration into this nation, how we need to go back into a quota system so that we can give the United States citizen a chance to have economic mobility in this country.
And yeah, we can remove them in large numbers. And one other thing, Jack, is that general immigration enforcement, that total spectrum enforcement. What that also does is it highly encourages illegal aliens that perhaps we don't arrest to self-deport, and that's really the crux of the issue, is that self-deportation. If we can have them self-deport, Jack, it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot easier, and it's very effective.
Well, it's interesting. I was tweeting about that as well, and it's something that I've raised with the administration a number of times because I saw Secretary Mullins was on he was on some interview and he was talking about the cost of deportations, and so actually maybe you could walk us through that. What is the cost of a single deportation when it's it's from the government side pushing versus when a single individual decides to self-deport?
Sure. Well, I know that Mullen had I believe that was approximately $8,500 was his figure.
Yeah, I think that
It's
was right.
also the cost of what happens if we don't deport those illegal aliens. What's the cost to the taxpayer over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years? It's way more than that. But the cost itself, in regards to self deportations, as opposed to the government deporting, self deportations, we were offering $2,500 and a free plane ticket. So let's say $3,500 for an illegal alien to self deport. It's a pretty good deal. It's fast, it's easy, and in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty cheap. When the government deports, it's going to be a little more expensive, but that also depends on that mechanism of deportation. Is the illegal alien going to be pushed back across the border, say to Mexico, or does Mexico have a third country agreement where we could put, say, someone from Honduras or El Salvador into Mexico? Much cheaper if they have to be flown halfway across the world, say back to Somalia or China or somewhere. It's definitely going to be more expensive.
And we also have to think about how the cartel has benefited from this open border policy since the 1990s, or how they have increased the prices based on the fact that they know so many people want to cross the border because American has been so compassionate. While this is supposed to be a fusion of cultures, kind of like, right? Still, there is a way for you to go about this in the right way instead of you trying to hide into the American system and force your way into the American system and be a detriment to the United States and the United States citizen. So, with the millions of people that came over during the Biden administration since the 90s, we have known that the cartel has been actively pursuing people to create a business out of actively pursuing for people to cross the border and giving them the details on what they need to say, giving them cell phones, giving some people VIP treatment, and allowing them to crawl up through tunnels instead of going through the hot desert. In order for them to cross the border, they have been making billions of dollars. We have been supporting the cartel with billions of dollars for this whole idea of illegally crossing the border into the United States. Right then, we got to think about birthright citizenship and the babies that are being created over here in the United States, right? Let's go over here to this right quick. I'm not able to blow this up, so I'm just going to read to you. A Pew Research study a Pew Research study last month found that 320 babies were born to illegal migrant mothers in 2023, which amounts to roughly 9% of all 3.6 million babies born in the U.S. that year. A closer look found that roughly 245,000 of those babies had fathers who were also not citizens or lawfully permanent residents or lawful residents. The trend in birth to illegal immigrants also follows the growth and decline of the illegal migrant population, with more children born in the U.S. to illegal migrants during the Biden administrations than in other administrations. The study also found that if the president executive order was in effect today, it would impact 5.1 million Americans who were born in the United States to illegal migrant mothers from 2006 to 2023, and 4.4 million had illegal migrant fathers. So the executive order would also impact mothers who were granted temporary legal status and gave birth to children while they were while they were legally in the United States but were not actual citizens. These include mothers referred to as birth tourists, who typically give birth to their children in the U.S. in order to give them citizenship. The study found that in 2023 there were about 9,000 children born to birth tourism. So we got to think about all the aspects into where the American system has been failing on immigration and why they talking about we need immigration reform. First of all, we got the closed borders that we were promised under the Biden administration in the 1980s, when a lot of people had been given asylum into this country. Now we got the closed borders. Now, but we still, apparently, there has been an understanding of how compassionate America is when it comes to immigration. How we have been, in these times, in most recent times, holding the illegal immigrant or the immigrant of more value than we have been holding the United States citizens. We got to think about the benefits that we give to other governments while these people cross this border, right? What's the benefit? The benefit is that instead of that money circulating back into the American economy, what is happening is that they are sending that money back into the country in which they come from. So, in that instance, some of these countries do not mind losing their human capital when that money is going to not circulate back into the United States and be a benefit to the United States and be more of a benefit to the country in which they come from. So I just want to bring you to all the aspects of why they talking about we need immigration reform. How else are you supposed to be going about this? Because what you have in Texas right now with Governor Abbott, you have Assembly Bill 4. And Assembly Bill 4 allows a person to, if they are suspected of being illegally in this country, that they are able to be detained, right? If they are not able to show their paperwork. Now, you're supposed to be, having your valid ID on you at all times. But even if you got a fake ID, if you don't come apart of being in that system to where they can identify you, then you're going to be detained. This is how serious it is. And like they said, they found that Greg Bovino, Pam Bondi, all these people who have generally gotten fired from this immigration hassle. I guess Trump in some ways felt like they are not doing enough. But the way that they were going about it was the way that the United States have always been going about it. And all of a sudden, now that the Democratic Party sees this as a way for them to redistrict, gain a more of constituency so they can have more just votes, people in their congressional maps, put more people in their congressional maps so they can get more congressional seats and stuff like that. And think about power instead of thinking about what the American people see on the ground when it comes to illegal immigration. how we voted to get these people removed excuse me, the American voted to get these people removed up out of this country, and they not taking note of that as our representatives. While they're thinking about power, here we're having a fight in for them to keep and remain in that power, as they don't want to pass the Save Act, as they don't want to fund ICE. They asking for reform. They trying to listen. If they were thinking about the American citizen like they supposed to, they will be with exactly how this has been playing out all these years prior. But since they see the benefit of having these people, and they believe that showing these people that they are going to fight for them, that there are somehow, see, this is the catch 22 with the Democratic Party, right? And something that I learned from Black America, how they give you stuff in order to think that they have loyalty to you and that they all about the people, as their whole identity is that we can treat them better. And that's the same thing of what they're doing now. They're telling they're telling the illegal immigrant that we can treat you better. They're telling the immigrant that we can treat you better. We need immigration reform. When you get them votes, when they get them votes, they care nothing about these people. So it's a bamboozle of the Democratic Party when they trying to talk about when they are becoming more of a socialist party, instead of thinking about these people's individuals' needs, and they only thinking about their realm of power within the United States. And they're going against we the people who told them that we want these people up out of here. Let's get back to Greg Bovino right quick. Let's let him talk.
But self deportations, that's where it's at. A lot cheaper, a lot more effective.
And so you see this when you say self-deportations, some of the ways that myself and others have called for, and walk me through if my thinking is correct on this. You look at the banking system, you try to find who's, which ones of them are accessing banking or debit cards. You look at their ability to rent. You look at their ability to possibly even own property. I know driver's licenses and CDLs is something that our Secretary of Transportation has been looking at. We're actually going to be speaking to him very shortly. And so it's all of those sort of, quality of life and course of life, pattern of life type inputs where you can go in and say, we can't have you accessing our system. If they can't access the system, then boom, they're going to go back. And the biggest one of all of those, of course, which we've called for here for years, is a massive tax on remittances.
Yeah, I believe in the massive tax on remittances. Even though it's at 1% right now, I believe that it should be 10, 15, 20%. We got to stop supporting the governments. We got to stop supporting economies and economies like Mexico economy, as they bring their human capital over here in order to send that money back home. While these people have houses out in Mexico that they are supporting. How many people in the United States right now? And I want to know how many. Leave it in the comments. How many people in the United States right now who can say they have a house in another country and still maintain the household out here? This is what these individuals are doing most of the time. They have so much of a good living out here where they're working 2 or 3 jobs, using group economics, right? Having shelter together, right? Until they are able to break apart. They're able to maintain a house out here in the United States after receiving a housing assistance, whether it's some form of government assistance or being able to access a first time and being able to access the first time home buyers program, and still maintain a house out in the country from which they came from. That's kind of like an embarrassment. That's kind of like a slap in the face to the United States citizen. Like, if that was the case, why didn't you stay where you was at and live out there while you having given yourself dual citizenship, having access with this current stance with the 14th Amendment, you have access to dual citizenship, but you knowing in your heart that your place of residence is actually in another country and that you really don't have allegiance to this country. You just taking and reaping the benefits of this country on an economic scale instead of you having full allegiance here. Ain't that a slap in the face to all the people who have bled, died, and fought for this country to be what it is for these people to want to come over here in the first place?
Spot on, Jack. Exactly. It's everything. You said the word everything. I think we fail to do that sometimes. We look at maybe one of those tactics as the panacea for self deportations, but it's not. It's everything. It's that total spectrum. Immigration enforcement. Let's make it so hard for them to live, to work, to recreate, to do anything in the United States that they have no choice but to self deport. And that's what we were doing in some of those large cities. Look at Los Angeles. Before we left Los Angeles a few months back, it was locked down. The fashion district there in downtown Los Angeles completely locked down. The illegal alien businesses, the businesses ran by illegal aliens, the businesses that were inhabited by illegal aliens completely shut down. And we started to see those self deportations rise because if you can't make a living and you can't move and work freely, then what other choice do you have? And doing that nationwide, as you say, whether it's looking at the banking system, taxes on remittances, there's a whole host of things that we can do to lock them down and encourage them to self deport.
And in no way should we be in our own country competing with immigrants. In no way should we be in competition with them to have be economically successful in this country, in our own country. I could see if this we were competing from across borders, but no way should we be in competition with supposed to be ourselves. When these people are not us, they're here to take everything and rip everything away from us as they are taking the full benefit of this country, something that is supposed to be given to United States citizen. And while our politicians, our leaders are allowing them to do this so they can have power, I can't say that for the Republican Party at this time, but I can damn sure say that for the Democratic Party. So I want to give you another update of with regards to what's happening to birthright citizenship. So as you can see, this is coming from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in itself, right? This took place. This implementation, right, happened July 25th, 2025, and this if the executive order with regards to birthright citizenship is actually taken into effect. This is some of the background. This is some of the background. Should I read that for you? Okay, let me read a little bit of this for you. Some of the background, just to bring you up to speed so we can move forward. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump issued Executive Order 14160 protecting the meaning of the value of American citizenship. I don't know what that citation is at the moment. I don't know if that's the Barber versus Trump case. But from the looks of it, I don't know exactly where that citation. That's a legal citation. All right, the executive order provides that the following categories of individuals will no longer be considered to be born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and thereof will no longer be U.S. citizens at birth. Children whose mothers was unlawfully present in the United States and the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent residence at the time of said person's birth, and children whose mother present in the United States at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary, such as not limited to visiting the United States under the auspices of the visa waiver program or visiting on a student, work, or tourist visa. And the father was not a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. So this is being currently taken up, right? So currently preliminary injunction is in place, preventing the government from implementing the EO, the executive order, C. Barber versus Trump. This is the citation currently in the Supreme Court, I believe, which it doesn't match this federal regulation or whatever, which is another legal citation. However, the government is preparing to implement the executive order in the event that it is permitted to go into effect. I don't know what the OOC is, right? The OOC provides the memorandum to address legal questions relevant to the implementation of the executive order. Specifically, this memorandum will address the the meaning of lawfully presence, the meaning of presence, that is lawful but temporary, and which the immigrant status or other types of lawful presence may fall into the category, and whether children born under the United States to persons whose presence is lawful but temporary would have a lawful immigration status. So there is a plan that Donald Trump is already particularly going to go into if the case with regards to birthright citizen taken up by the court, the executive order is allowed to go into effect. And we have to think about this because we have to think about all the spectrum in which the United States citizens are being hurt by immigration within itself, whether it's legal or illegal. While there should be considerations for repeal of the Immigration Act of 1965 and go back to a quota system, because what we're not doing is we're not giving people a time to assimilate. We're not giving ourselves time to actually see, do these people want to stay here permanently, or do they want to be like a lot of individuals? Do they want to keep their primary residence in other countries, keep residence in another country as they're paying for housing in other countries, to take care of family while they're just out here to do all the work? See, this is why it was always about circular migration. While you come out here for a while, you are able to work on a farm for a period of time, and this is how uh, it's been advertised that farms are one of the main aspects in which these people are able to get jobs and not stay over here permanently. You come over here during the season, and whatever season that is in which that crop needs to grow, then you go back home. You've made enough money to come over here to take care of yourself throughout the year, wherever else you come from, instead of having people act like they care about the country, like they are a piece of the American fabric of people who bled, died, fought, sweat, tears, while these people are pushing the American system, the American citizen out of the opportunities that the American citizen fought for, that their forebears have fought for. This is all the spectrum that we need to look at when looking at, do we need to keep these people here, instead of look at it from a realist perspective, not from a compassionate perspective. Because compassion and being real about this situation is two different things. Because compassion can have you fall into a dream and fall into a trap to where you're ultimately killing yourself with this whole situation. And not knowing what you're doing for your child, such in places like education, where the illegal immigrant or immigrant has the opportunity to get a trade before your child, as that child is looking for opportunity in a direction that in which they want to go about in life. Here they are, they had to sit and wonder around for 2 years. They had to sit and wonder around for 2 years because the line to get into that trade is so long. You have illegal immigrants just wandering around in the streets in these sanctuary cities, to where the police are not even allowed to mess with them. How, based on the census, these states are able to benefit because it looks like they have an increased population. They're able to gain congressional seats. How they have been using federal dollars to take care of these individuals. And in these two areas, the federal government under Trump has said, we're not going to do that no more. If you're not going to be like Governor Abbott in Texas, to where you in the other governor in Florida, if you're not going to be a participant in assisting us get these people up out of here, then you're not going to get any federal dollars. You're the only dollars that you're going to be given if you are going to be of assistance with getting these people up out of here. So The motivation to keep these individuals in places like Texas is leaving. California needs to jump onto the same boat. It actually does. Let's let Greg Bovino go back and talk.
And so we look at this, and this has to be, and I'm just going to say it, one of the big pushbacks we get here when it comes to E-Verify and other systems is the employers in this country, isn't it?
It is, and a lot of those employers say it's impossible for them to say use an e-verify or to get those documents needed for an illegal alien to actually work. But that's not true. Look at the border, Jack. Look right here in El Centro, the Imperial Valley. All those farmers that utilize that migrant labor, they don't seem to have a problem getting documents or using those systems that are in place now for those migrant workers to work the farms here in the Imperial Valley. I think it's the farmers in the interior just aren't used to it. They don't want to be used to it. And rather than do it the right way, they just hire illegal labor.
And right, and we can all sit there and say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But you know what though? I bet you every single one of us knows someone in our lives who runs, whether it's a small firm or small contractor, whatever it is, where they are, where they're living large, they're living high on the hog, and we know what they're doing. We know it's because they're cutting corners and hiring illegals.
You're right. And one of the things with hiring illegal aliens is, do they pass the savings on to the consumer? Whether it's a farmer, a construction firm, is the savings passed on to the consumer? Well, my housing cost to build a house or buy a house hasn't gotten cheaper. Nothing gets cheaper, but they've got that almost slave labor, but they're not passing the savings on to you or me. So that's a fallacy that they actually need those illegal aliens to just get by. That's not true. We were getting by just fine before this massive influx of illegal aliens infected our nation.
Like, yeah, I hate the fact to the point to where it'd be like, who's going to feed you? Who's going to build your houses? Who's going to do this and that if you get rid of all the illegal immigrants? Exactly. Who was doing it here before you got here? So I find that to be very disrespectful and something that needs to be ordinarily checked to where we are doing exactly what's need to be done to put American citizens back into these jobs to where it seemed like we are not dependent on immigration in order for us to sustain ourselves. It's only right to us as members of this country.
That's exactly right. We're on with Commander Gregory Bovino. He until recently was serving until his retirement, served as the commander at large for CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. He's on with us walking through the mechanisms of mass deportations, how the system works, and how, hopefully, with the new secretary, we can get it to work even better and increase those mass deportations. Right back, Human Events Daily, Jack Posobiec, Real America's Voice.
So I want to give my bad. I want to give it up to Greg Bovino for telling the truth about this whole situation and not giving us falsehoods and allowing us to see the reality of the situation, how the Democrats primarily have been shooting us falsehoods and telling us that we can do immigration better when they only trying to keep these people here for their congressional seats. And one of the things that they're not paying attention to is that with the upcoming census, as it progresses, we're going to go through a pilot for the midterms in terms of counting our population to where these people are not going to be counted who are here in the system illegally. And it's going to get even bigger as it spreads through the nation into 2030. They don't want to pass the Save America Act. They don't want ICE to do the job that they were supposed to be doing. Like, not only do you need to take away the availability of creating an environment for the illegal immigrants to come in this country, make them feel entitled, and make them feel like we're dependent on them for a labor force, right? You need to stop the corporations from necessarily cheating, but you also need to stop the system, our leadership, from not hearing what the United States citizen is telling them when it comes to illegal immigrations, as we are the people on the ground telling them that, man, listen, y'all don't understand that what we're going through, as we are going through all this stuff from y'all allowing all these people to cross the border in so many different ways. They're being disrespectful, and we are being disrespected, and y'all are allowing this disrespect. And you have the Democratic Party who just don't want to listen, who care about party more than they care about people. Tiny Cross-H.U.G on the Trumped Up Live Show, man. Always remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. It's a good day to be a soldier.
They said transformation was impossible. Faith, facts, and fire. Tiny Cross-H.U.G style.